Welcome back to Bedtime Stories by Monique. We're on rule number 2. You don't have to cuddle anyone at a cuddle party ever. Look to your heart and soul first, rather than looking to your head first when choosing. Rather than what you think, consider instead how you feel. Look to the nature of things. Feel your choices and decisions. It just might change everything. Jeffrey R. Anderson. The second rule states that there is nothing you must do at a cuddle party except follow the rules. This opens up the entire experience, makes each event unique, and gives everyone in the room an opportunity to co-create the experience. Reed taught me early on, the event will go how the event will go, Monique. This advice allowed me to let go of it having to be perfect. Is there really such a thing? Even if there were, who could possibly qualify to judge whether it was perfect or not? This rule boils down to the following. We are at choice every moment when we can truly accept, own, and honor that we are choosing our lives as the results of decisions we make. And then we can let go of what society, religion, and our parents and teachers have told us to do or demanded that we do. When we accept and let go in these two ways, we begin to reclaim our power and remember our inner truth. We affect the world and we happen to the world, not the other way around. When we realize that nothing is happening to us, we begin to set ourselves free. Some people come to cuddle party and sleep most of the night. Some carry on in-depth conversations, some write in a journal, some can't get enough cuddles, and some practice saying no the entire night. I actually did that at a few of my first cuddle parties. At the first cuddle party in Utah, the closest that most attendees ever got to cuddling was when they rolled the dice for the board game that they were playing. Every once in a while, their elbows would brush up against each other. Guess what? They had an amazing night. Just as rule number 1 opens up a new doorway to touch when sex is off the table, this rule opens up your mind, heart, body, and soul to the concept that there is really nothing you have to do ever. Just take that in for a breath. As a result, it begins changing past patterns of sacrifice, victimhood, obligation, have to, should have, even the concept of right and wrong. I love the Sufi poet Rumi, and my absolute favorite quote of his is, "Out beyond the ideas of wrong and right, there is a field. I'll meet you there." For most of my years, I lived on the edge of panic, believing the world's about to end. I was the first person everybody called in a crisis because I spent so much energy thinking up every what-if scenario I possibly could, preparing for every disaster and being on call in case things fell apart. The rest of my time was spent reading people, observing their moods, walking on eggshells, hoping to cause the least amount of trouble in their lives. When something did go way off course, it was easy for me to keep my head because I was used to sitting with the discomfort of being out of control. The predictable trade-off for all this hypervigilant preparedness was that I was missing out on the beauty and connections around me. Since my body was always on high alert, I could never relax and enjoy the present moment. All my energy was directed to a future moment that might or might not happen. But by golly, I was prepared for it if it did. Cuddle Party became my laboratory, my research and development arena. There is a gift within the fact that the container is for a set amount of time, with a beginning and an end. Little by little, I learned to take off my what-if hat at the door, knowing I could put it back on when I left. While I was in the cuddle party itself, I got to practice relaxing, being with whoever I was, or being with whatever I was feeling, and whatever another was feeling without having to preemptively guess. There, I began to unravel the religious teachings I was brought up with. These teachings said, here is your checklist. You must do these things, and then you'll be rewarded when you die. These are the right things to do to get you into heaven. Instead, I more and more used the strategy of tuning into my body whenever there was a choice. Through this added awareness and this giving of permission to my intuition, little by little, what became right to me was whatever felt good in my body. Whichever choice offered more space inside me to be able to feel even more at any given time. That space felt like freedom to me. Freedom from the barrage of what-if voices in my head. Freedom to actually love God instead of fear Him. And freedom to begin choosing to be with people. Once right versus wrong, obligation, should and must were out of the way, each interaction became a celebration. If my world was filled with limitless possibilities, why not pick exactly what I wanted to do at any moment, and then totally revel in and savor every second of that choice? My questioning, wondering, and agonizing over whether I was doing the right thing began softening as I was repeatedly shown the following. There isn't a right answer. Freedom, liberation comes from being open to my heart, mind, spirit, and especially my body. And the right answer for me is what will bring the most joy in any given moment. I feel deep down that I have the choice, that I'm not committed to anything and do not have to do anything. Hence, in the absolute freedom lies sweet joy and the full embrace, surrender, awareness of playing in just this moment. Being exactly as I am. Here's the best part. I have much more room within my psyche when I remember that whatever the people around me are doing is right for them, and it's not my responsibility to change or save them. I have two stories that I gratefully share to show how I was able to respond as I did only because of the practice grounds of all those cuddle parties. One early morning, I waited in a much longer than usual security line at the Oakland airport. Everyone was stressed and upset about the delay, afraid of missing their flights. A man in front of me turned around and initiated a conversation. I'm gonna die. I'm flying to a hospital to die, and because of this stupid line, I might miss my flight. He said very, very tenderly and a little upset, and dramatically waited for my response. I just stood there, keeping his gaze, holding him exactly where he was. He looked surprised, but then got angrier and cursed the line, people, and God. He finally stopped and looked at me again. I was still there, just being with him and feeling such gratitude for the opportunity of this chance encounter. After a few minutes of being the tough guy and expelling his rage, he began crying, great big sobs, and asked me for my name. For the rest of our wait in that long line, we talked about God, compassion, how we truly all have an expiration date, and so much more. He shared that he hadn't been able to tell his daughter what was happening to him. He just kissed her on the forehead that morning and said, "I love you," and then drove away. He kept thanking me for being so kind, and I kept thanking him for giving me the gift of remembering just how precious each breath is. We stood for a few minutes, breathing together, appreciating the magnificence and true gift of a single breath, a moment of connection. When he finally made it through security and ran for his flight, the last words out of his mouth were, "When I reach the other side, the first thing I will say is thank you to God for Monique." The rest of the journey to my plane was filled with such tenderness. I was sobbing in gratitude and couldn't wait to tell my sons how much I love them. I'm grateful for the gift of being with people almost every day in workshop space. I even get to direct them in an exercise during my silent puja of meeting themselves on their deathbeds and feeling the preciousness of life. And yet that day, I got to experience this so directly that it was one of the most holy moments I could ever imagine. I appreciate the gift of that man, that morning, the gift of the awareness that we have an expiration date for this life. This too shall pass. So what is there to do but choose to fully feel and experience each moment that we can? The second story, oddly enough, also occurred in an airport, and what follows is from my Facebook post that day. There aren't words for the gratitude that's flowing through my veins. People have said to me before that I live my life as a teaching versus being a teacher. I've never truly felt that way towards myself until this moment. I'm sitting on a flight with people irate and upset, angry all around me because our flight is delayed for maintenance issues. Yet I'm calm as I sit here in such joy with tears pouring down my face, listening to my favorite meditation music and offering much devotion and appreciation to the universe for just this moment. Because the flight was delayed, I was available for a call from Nathan. My sons tentatively asked if they could please stay home and go to a party and not pick me up at the airport. This was a super brave thing to ask, as they were already feeling defeated and that it was highly unlikely I would say yes. Even a few months ago, I would have taken it personally, so desiring for them to want to pick me. But as Nathan asked me, all I was filled with was gratitude that they can give me room to grow, that they would ask something and be open to me giving a new, different answer than I had always given. As I felt how happy I was that they were taking care of themselves, a part of me wished that they wanted to pick me up at the airport more than go to a party, but it no longer means anything about me. So when they do say yes, it will be such an authentic celebration. I love them so much. I love that pieces of what I offer to the world have finally helped shift me. I was talking with a friend yesterday, and he was commenting how powerful anger can feel. But can I be available to feel what's underneath? Allow my feelings, my grief to come and go, so I can be available for the subtle beauty of this moment. I've never felt more open or more grateful. I long for connection so greatly, and the best way to meet and honor that desire is to be open to connecting to myself, honoring every aspect, loving and accepting every piece, letting go of right or wrong, so I am here. As I finished typing this, the maintenance guy just fixed the door. None of the fear, anger, and upset that the other passengers were feeling made it go any faster, because my first go-to was not that. I was here with all this beauty and was able to share it with you. Tonight, as I hold my boys, I'm home. But you know what? On this plane with my music and tears, I was already home. My sons went to their party that night. The plane I transferred to also had mechanical issues. In fact, this time we had to get off and wait for a new plane. By the time I landed in Utah, it was late enough that my boys had finished their party and were waiting at the baggage carousel to hug and welcome me. Had I not been able to fill into their question without a foregone set conclusion, we would have all lost. They would have missed their party, and the flight delays would have felt horrible to me because I would have felt that my inability to be flexible and my need to be right had left them without a choice. The beauty of letting go of any way it's supposed to go left it open to be exactly what we all wanted. These are two incredible examples from my life of how this second rule, you don't have to cuddle anyone ever, has shifted everything for me. This rule also means that you can leave a cuddle party at any time. If you leave right after the welcome circle, you get a full refund. I remember a shy, timid man who attended a cuddle party a few years ago. After hearing rule number 2, he abruptly stood up and walked out of the space. Many other attendees approached me during the cuddling, clearly worried about him. They wanted to know what happened, if there was anything I could have done to get him to stay, and if there was anything I was going to do to follow up. I loved the conversations his choice opened up. A lot of my cuddle veterans were still spending most of their lives trying to take care of others. This was a great opportunity for them to see that pattern and begin letting go of another's experience. I did try to follow up with the gentleman, but did not get a reply, so I let it go. He was just taking care of himself. About a year later, the same man walked into another cuddle party I was facilitating. He made it through the welcome circle and then requested some time for a conversation. I was a solid yes, and what he shared touched me deeply. He said that since that first cuddle party where he had felt so overwhelmed, he had to leave. He had come to several other cuddle parties. I was surprised because I did not remember ever seeing him again until this night. He giggled nervously and said that at the ones after the first one, he had sat in his car, walked halfway up the driveway, and then made it all the way to the doorway for one of them. But each time he chickened out and left without coming inside. He felt awkward and embarrassed about having so abruptly left that first time. I asked him if I could share what happened after he left that night. He was a yes, so I told him that he had been a great teacher for so many in the room, including myself, for all the parts of us that still want to take care of someone else, that are still stuck in the belief that there is a right way for everything to go. I thanked him for his gift that night, and this quiet, shy man first began to cry, and then proceeded to light up like a Christmas tree. As the light switched on in his head, I could see his realization that there is nothing he has to do at a cuddle party ever, which in turn could open up into how there is nothing he has to do in his life ever. Thanks for joining me for rule number 2.